Okay, good morning, everyone. Look, firstly, thank you very much for joining us for our webinar. Now, we've kicked this off just a few minutes early, so we're just going to give people time to filter through. In the meantime, perhaps something we could do to test the Q&A function of this webinar. If you wouldn't mind, essentially opening up the Q&A section and telling us where you're from, and to make it a bit more fun, use an emoji to describe how you're currently feeling about AI. So I'll just give you a minute to do that, just while we let people filter through. For those of you who have just joined, and I can see a massive number of note takers coming through, but naturally there will be natural people as well. Please tell us where you're from in the Q&A section and use an emoji to describe how you're feeling about AI, and we will get going in a minute. Okay, I think that's enough time. So, good morning, everyone. Look, firstly, thank you very much for joining for our webinar today, The Practical Implementation of AI for Accountants. This is brought to you by my own company, FM Insure, in conjunction with Ingram Micro and Norrcom as well. Now, just to note, this webinar is being recorded, so a copy of it will go out. We understand that there's been some internet issues, very sadly, across Auckland this morning. So if you do cut out for whatever reason, there will be a recording available. Now, a bit of backstory for this webinar. Really, as long as I can remember, accountants have been on the verge of being obsolete. It's always been just around the corner. And I did a bit of research on this, actually. And what I found is that this idea actually harks back all the way to the 50s. Right, was exaggerated again and funnily enough, back then it was the introduction of new technology that brought about the fear that the accountant's going to be obsolete. Then you had the spreadsheet revolution in the late 70s, and some of us will be alive long enough to have seen the various iterations of the obsolescence of the accountant. So here we find ourselves again on the verge of accountants being rendered obsolete. Now, if you ask me, in my personal experience so far, if there's something I've learned, it's that accountants aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon, and you aren't going to lose your job or your client to technology alone. But perhaps what is more feasible and reasonable is that you could potentially lose your job or your client to an accountant who is making better use of that technology. So this webinar came about through my own experience. I talked to, and here at FM Insure, we talk to accounting firms almost every single day of or every single working day of our lives. And if you're not complaining about the increasing cost of software, you are complaining about AI and being able to practically use it day to day. So when I talked to Chris from Norrcom a few months ago now, I said, hey, I would love to put a session together like this to tell accountants how they could actually practically be using AI in their day-to-day better and more effectively. So hence why we're here. So, many of you, I think, will know me hopefully by now. My name's Clyden. I am Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder of FM Insure. We are a specialist tax audit insurance brokerage, and we're making tax audit insurance easier, fairer, and more innovative. Now, for the fact that I have primarily a tax background, I'm going to do something that probably doesn't come as natural to me, is I'm going to shut up for most of this webinar, and I'm going to let the experts in the room that we've assembled really take the discussion further from here and drive that information through to you. So joining me today, very thankfully, is Craig Galloway from Ingram Micro. Now, Craig is a solutions architect for Microsoft and emerging technology at Ingram Micro. He focuses on M365, Azure, Power Platform, as well as vendor-agnostic emerging technologies such as AI. So he will, if some of those words were not familiar, if you're not familiar with some of those words, he will help clarify that. And he's here to make things as simple as possible. Also joining us is Chris Norris from Norrcom. Chris is CEO in Norrcom on an IT company. He's going to talk to you really about practically how can you be using AI more as an accountant or get you started on your journey. And he has a special offer which he'll provide at the end for every person that's joined today. Today, here's what we're going to be covering, right? Your eyes can glance over what we'll be going through. Q&A, please ask questions as we're going. I can see there is now 90 people on this call, which is great. Test the Q&A function. In the meantime, if you don't have questions, tell us where you're from. Use an emoji to describe how you're feeling about AI at this point in time. And as we're presenting today, please ask questions. When Craig's going through practical examples, I will try and interject and get him to answer those questions in real time, which may work really, really well. So when you registered, we asked you a question, really simply, what do you want AI to help with? Now, your eyes can glance over what the answers are of what you've told us. I'd like to say thank you very much for giving us your answers and providing this information, because this is what helped Craig really formulate what his presentation is going to be about today. And we intend to tell you how AI can help with this, and to go further from here, Norrcom can help with the implementation of some of this if it takes your interest. Now, it would be remiss of me not to talk a bit about FM Insure before I hand over to Craig. So FM Insure and Fee Cover, we are the primary sponsors of today's session, and this is a business and a product that's very near and dear to my heart. So FM Insure is actually born from, I say that because a few years ago, we noticed that IRD was making significantly better use of technology. They have better systems, they're far more automated, data-driven, and you hear about the tentacles of IRD being across the country, various financial markets and across the globe. And what we observed is a significantly more competent and I suppose, aggressive IRD in terms of scrutiny, pressure, inquiring on returns that are being filed, and objectively, the data shows us that that scrutiny is at an all-time high, particularly over the last few years. And what stood out to us is that in New Zealand, tax audit insurance picks up the cost of professional fees in the event IRD come knocking. New Zealanders very unfortunately and sadly had no choice as to who they choose to use. Unfortunately, the symptom of being a Kiwi means that you either you could operate under a duopoly or a monopoly, and this industry was certainly monopolized in New Zealand. So it became our purpose and mission to do something about that and to bring New Zealanders a better alternative. Took us about a year, but we found a significantly better option across in Australia. We worked on bringing that to New Zealand, and we're now here with Fee Cover providing the very best as to what Australia has been doing for the last 6 years plus. So our purpose, we're here to evolve the tax audit insurance industry by making it easier, fairer, and more innovative. Very proudly, we're already doing that, and it continues to be the core of why we exist. We are now working with some of the largest and most prominent firms across the country, and are signing up accounting firms on an almost daily basis. Without going into too much detail here today, but the hero of our offering and how we get to do that is via our Fee Cover policy line. And Fee Cover Edge is designed for accountants. We provide one policy that covers every single client in your care. Right, that's one policy to meet the increased pressure that IRD are placing on businesses. And if you have been using a traditional, more antiquated product in the past, you will be very familiar with the amount of work that an accounting firm needs to do. We've taken that all away. You don't need to sign up a client one by one. You don't need to review spreadsheets, go through the usual administration work that you may need to do. Fee Cover Edge has taken it all away and has provided a single policy that looks after every single client in your care. And by doing that, all the admin work goes away and all the cost is reduced as well. So if you'd like to know more, fminsure.co.nz, or message me, reach out to me, always happy to help. Now, with that being said, as I promised, I will now take a back seat and hand over to Craig to lead the presentation from here.
Thanks very much, Clayton. Good morning, everyone. It's fantastic to see so many people in the call, and I promise I am going to be diving into the tools, doing as many demos as I can possibly do in the allocated time. But I have one slide, and this is the slide that I'd really just like to kick things off. And the reason that I chose this slide is really around I suppose the confusion around Copilot as a brand within the Microsoft ecosystem. And I just wanted to basically give you a single view of what I'm going to be covering today and where they slot in. So the per seat or the per user license Microsoft 365 Copilot that we purchase within our businesses on a per user basis is the one on the left hand side there. Now, the idea of this is that it is for personal use and personal gain. So it is something that is a personal assistant to you. It is your Copilot, and it's the way that you utilize it within the data that you have access to. Now, with that license, you get access to what is known as declarative agents. I like to call them light agents, but basically what it is a way for us as end users to create a specific agent on a repeatable basis. So where these come into play and where they're really helpful for individuals is if we do something, let's say we do it every fortnight or every month, but we're doing it exactly the same. The only thing that changes is the data. That means that we're looking for predictability on the outcomes. And these agents really help with that. And I'll show you in a demo when we do that. And then on the right-hand side, Copilot Cowork is the new kid on the block. It is probably the most intelligent one that we have available to us. It is a addition or an add-on to your Microsoft 365 Copilot license, but it really does have a vast skill set. It has a vast knowledge around different large language models that it has access to. And the idea with Copilot Cowork is that we shift from a prompting engine to basically a declarative. So we're basically passing a delegated task to something which is called our coworker. And the idea is that it doesn't do things rapidly. So if we're looking for a quick answer, that's where we'll use things like generative AI. But when we're looking for quality work to be done on our behalf, we throw these tasks to Copilot Cowork, and it sits in the background and works through these things. And I'll show you what that looks like as well. So I promised a single slide, so let's dive straight into the demo. And as Clayton said, please feel free to raise your hand or pop a question in. You're more than welcome to stop me if you would like me to answer any questions as we're going through the demos. So the screen I've shared now, this is basically your interface, your user experience from a Copilot perspective. Now, Microsoft 365 Copilot has access through this, or it has access through it within the applications itself. Now, the big difference is that the idea of this section over here is that it's a central way of interacting with all of your data. When you want to be specific and work on a specific document or a specific email or a specific spreadsheet, that's where we start leaning towards using Copilot within those applications itself. Now, and thank you very much for all the feedback. So the main one was around, I suppose, email triaging as well as data prep. So when it comes to Copilot, we've got a couple of options here. So within the m365.cloud.microsoft interface, we are able to give it a prompt. So for example, this is what should I be on my radar for the last week? When you run that, it basically is going to go through all of your emails and give you a view of what you missed last week or what you should be looking at on that Monday that you're getting back into the work. Now, the nice thing about it is that we are actually able to schedule these prompts. So when it comes to triaging your inbox or highlighting things that you may have missed, you might want to run it on a schedule that is either every day, twice a day, whatever it may be. And we can actually create that schedule. We can set it when we want it to start, what time we want it to run every day, and then until when. And what will happen then is that prompt will always run at that time that you schedule it, and you'll receive an email in your inbox saying that the prompt has been successfully run. You would then come in over here and you'll be able to see what that looks like. And the email that you receive also gets a bit of a rundown as to what you might want to focus on. A second part that we can do from a inbox management perspective is within Outlook itself. So basically within Outlook itself, we have a couple of settings that are available to us. So we can now, you can see Microsoft is starting to introduce even more capability. I would still say it's probably on the lower end from a effectiveness, but we are getting there from a true triaging of our inbox perspective. So you can see over here, we're allowed to prioritize our emails. And what it's going to do now is it's going to basically give you an AI summary of every email that comes in if you wanted to. We can also ask it to apply a low level or a high level priority to the labels. Now, these labels work with basically giving it instructions as to what do you consider a high priority email, what do you consider a lower priority email. So you might want to, for example, have any mailing list that you subscribed to over the years. You might want to put something in there from an instructions perspective to say these are lower priority. And then anything from following domains, the following senders, the following content in the mails, you might set that as higher priority. And basically what happens is when email comes into your inbox, you're going to get a little blue arrow up or a red arrow down that's showing higher or lower priority. And then you're actually able to filter by those priorities as well. The second part is we can actually give it draft instructions. So we can basically ask it, when we ask you to draft an email on my behalf, this is how I want you to draft it. So you can go and put examples in there of a draft email, that how you write, your tone, the length, the greeting, etc., and just basically give it instructions and guardrails as to how you want it to draft those emails for you. And then calendar, we can also basically let Copilot create the calendar review, calendaring entries, that type of stuff for us, for it to basically suggest times, suggest locations, all that type of stuff. And we can create some instructions around managing our calendar as well. So you can see we've got two ways of doing it, either within the apps themselves, or we actually utilize the user experience within m365.cloud.microsoft.com. So within the apps itself, we can basically, you'll see over here, if you open up a email, you'll see that over here, it actually highlights the mail. That means that it's actually utilizing that email as the knowledge, as the context of the prompt. So if I, for example, ask to summarize this thread, it's going to summarize the thread of that email itself and then bring back what that looks like. So whenever we have a query, it's either going to be on our wider knowledge, so everything, or we be very specific when it comes to the context that we want to utilize for it as well. What I can do to say so cool, please can you draft a short reply to this, and it will then basically type out that short reply for me that I can copy and paste into the mail. Now, within the new mails as well, we can create and get it to write emails on our behalf as well. So you can ask it to write an email based on what it is. And again, it will go and then write that email for you. So we've got a couple of ways to draft, we've got a couple of ways to ask about data within Outlook itself, and it will build the response for you. We cannot take an email and have an auto response to it and then send on our behalf with Microsoft 365 Copilot. But with Copilot Cowork, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, we are actually able to take that next step and actually start sending and creating emails and sending on our behalf without us actually having to do it ourselves. So I'll take you through that and what that looks like. So staying within the applications itself, you can see over here, I've got this is all dummy data. I created this where it's just basically a list of transactions, a GL extract, bank statements, recons, budget versus actuals. And the idea is that we are reviewing this data to put in any exceptions for review that we have to identify or pass on to our team. So instead of me going to do it manually, I'm basically going to say, all right, fine, there's a whole bunch of transactions here. Can you find anything that looks wrong or unusual, duplicate payments, missing cost centers, amounts that did not fit the pattern or coding does not match the description? And what it's going to do is it's basically going to use a dedicated Excel agent to go and review this data. So where we get more power utilizing it within the apps itself over doing it over here is that these agents that are, for example, in Outlook, in Word, in Excel, are all agents that are trained to do that specific function. So they are there to do Excel analysis. They are there to create Word documents. They are there to create PowerPoint presentations. And they're good at that, and that's all they do. They don't do anything else. They're not like multi-talented, so to speak. So basically, it'll sit in here. It'll go through all of the data. It'll look for that, and then it will start bringing out what it's going to find. Now, you can see over here on the top, we have an auto piece. So what's happening here is Microsoft has taken the approach to have multi-models available to all the users. If we keep it on auto, it's going to basically decide how and which models to utilize. So this is quite I've asked it to do quite a lot of analysis on this. So my gut feel would probably be it'll be leaning towards the Claude models over here because they're much better at analyzing data and crunching numbers. Whereas if we were writing a document, for example, we were doing a month-end review, or we're doing a statement of work or something like that, it would probably lean towards the GPT models. But just a tip over here, if you ever are utilizing this, you're not quite getting the results that you're looking for, try and actually choose a specific model. I've found that you get quite good results if you're doing analytical work. Put it onto the Opus models. They do all the sort of models that work really well. If you're doing a document and you're writing a document and you're not quite getting what you want, put it into the GPT models. They really are good at that general purpose writing of documents, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that to run now, and we'll come back to it in a second. But basically, it's going to go through all of this and then bring back some examples for me. End of the day, we want this to be populated with some info based on the data that we are providing it. So while that's running, I'm just going to jump into the Word now. So this is again, dummy data that I created, but it's basically a transcript of a Teams meeting that we've had over the period or over a meeting. Now, this can either be done through Team Premium. It can be done if you have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. You'll be able to get the transcription word for word what was said. Now, if you have these meetings in person, we can either do that through Teams as well, because there's a thing called a voice profile that will basically register your voice and then match you to that. So if there's 10 or 12 of you sitting in a Teams room, you can actually do a voice profile and it'll match it to that. If not, you can use this from a recording device. So any device that will be able to record and transcribe the meeting into text, you'll be able to get that. But the idea is that we basically just want to get that meeting into a digital format for us to be able to utilize. So what I'm telling it now is I'm basically telling it to read this month in standard transcript and produce a table of every action that was agreed with the owner. And then basically what it's going to do is it'll start reading that. You'll see over here, we've got this action register that is empty, and it'll start populating that action register based off the transcript that we have been given. Again, you'll see on the top, we have access to multiple models. But here you can see it's busy building out the transcript for me or the action register for me based on those minutes. So we don't have to go and manually do that anymore, which is great. And then I can say to it also, like, which of these actions are blocked by something outside of our control, and basically ask it to give me an idea of which one. So you'll see I can ask it questions about the data and it will answer in the window. Or I can ask it to actually update and change the data of the Word document, of the Excel document, etc. So you can see over there, bring it out a bit. That's given me a whole breakdown of what these actions are blocked or something outside of our control. So we can see over here, just coming back to the Excel piece, so you can see what it's done now. It's gone and found a whole bunch of, I suppose, exceptions that we need to review. So it's picked up the duplicate payments. It's picked up missing cost centers, some coding or GSD mismatches, missing ledgers, etc. And then it's basically given me a priority, high, medium, low, the owner, and action that is required, as well as the. So it's basically taken every single, I suppose, line in this Excel spreadsheet, crunched all of that, and then found any anomalies that were there for me to be able to pull out. So takes away that manual task of us having to go through each of those different lines. So now if we come into, and I'm just going to come into a new
Sorry,
Word
Craig.
document. Got a question? Sure.
Yeah, sorry, Craig, before you move on, just a couple questions here. So the first one is this all on the default Copilot with M365 subscription, or does it all need
Correct.
to be upgraded?
So this is all Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you are licensed for that, that's what you'll have access to this. If you are utilizing the free version that comes with Business Basic and above, you'll access this view. But when you open up Word, Excel, you're not going to access Copilot within your ribbon. That's probably the easiest way to tell. Or right at the bottom here, you'll user, and it'll say M365 Copilot Basic. Mine will say Premium because I am a licensed user. That's probably the easiest way to tell which one you have.
Yeah, so anyone with M365 currently will have access to a version of this in some ways. Is that correct?
So they'll have access to the chat version, definitely, where you can have an interaction with your data. If you have the premium version, you'll have access to what I just demoed now within the apps themselves.
Okay, that's fine. I think that answers the question. Thank you. We have another one here, which I think has inadvertently already been answered through some of the demos you did, but what is a large language model used by Copilot? Am I right in saying it's Claude and GPT? Is that correct?
Correct. Those are the two they're using. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Those are the only questions for now, but please keep questions coming, everyone. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So now what I'm going to do is I just want to demo how Copilot can allow us or help us create documentation. So I utilize this feature a lot. So basically what I'm asking it here is I'm saying draft the 2026 management letter for harbor engineering using this template. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to just add the template from my SharePoint folder. So if you have a specific template that you wanted to utilize and you wanted to work with that, you can basically come in and you can say, cool, this is our approved management letter. So I want you to utilize that template when you're generating this. I'm then going to say match the tone, the structure, use the exception variances in the July month end pack. And you can notice here, I'm not even going to tell it where to get the July month end pack from. But because Microsoft 365 Copilot has access to what is known as Work IQ, it has access to basically who you are, who you work with, what projects you're working on, who you're emailing, the data that you have access to, and it utilizes all of that knowledge to bring in the request or the prompt that you have asked it. So I'm asking it to specifically create a report, but I wanted to use a specific template. So I'm being very specific with the template type. But the rest of it, I'm just saying, yeah, go get the data. You know where it is. You know who I am. And basically, it's going to build out a management report utilizing the same template I wanted to do, and then the data that it has access to. If by chance it does bring back stuff that you don't want in there, you can then just prompt it again and say, cool, please don't utilize this, utilize that. And then it will make those changes for you. So you can see over here, it's done the results. It's doing the required technical matters now. Information is still outstanding. And then it should be the next steps now. It should be a couple more seconds and that should be finished. And then I'll show you what an iteration looks like now. So there we go. So it's basically done now. So what I'm going to say to it now is I'm going to say, okay, rewrite section 2. So section 2 being this matters that requires your attention. And then say why it matters, why we need the clients, and by when we need it. So that's how we start iterating the document rather than just starting to make manual changes for it. So I've specifically said section 2. It'll know that section 2 is this matters requiring your attention, and it will start building that out again as I wanted it. So there you can see it's there what we need. So be very specific with that. And then just to show you again, we can interact with this data and not actually have to change the document. So basically what I'm saying now is that's fantastic. I have this Word document, but now give me 5 bullet points version for Mark Delaney's board pack. And what it'll do is it'll just give me the bullet points in the chat that I can copy and paste and then put it into an email and share it with Mark for me. So about 2 ways again for us to be able to utilize this technology either in the documents itself or outside of it. Are there any questions before I carry on?
No, none
Cool.
since the last one's great. Thank you.
Okay, all good.
There is one question from Michael. Sorry, Chris. But Michael, I'll go through that when I talk to Chris from Norrcom about data security and how you ensure client information is safe. So I'll cover that after Craig's gone.
No worries, all good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move to that second pillar. So this was basically Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now I'm going to move to that second pillar where I spoke about that fancy declarative agents, but I like to call them lighter agents. This is, again, part of the Microsoft 365 Copilot Premium license. So if you do have that premium license, you will have access to something like this. So if we come into the m365.cloud.microsoft interface, you basically get access to what is called agents. Now, this agents is going to allow you to create a new agent. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically say to this, it's going to ask you, cool, what do you want me to build? This is a specialist agent for yourself, and what do you want me to build? So a tip here is that instead of you trying to figure it out yourself, rather just go to chat and say, hey, I want to build an agent. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And AI will actually give you a very nice starting prompt for you to actually create this agent. So here I'm saying you are North Harbor month-end briefing agent for an accounting practice, what your purpose is, what your scope is, what your sourcing rules, and your response format. So what I want the response and the output to look like, the style, and the reason why we get AI to actually assist us with these prompts is because large language models all expect the same input to give you quality output. And there's certain things like role, there's certain things like context, there's certain things like guardrails that it all expects. So if we ask a large language model to build a prompt, it takes all of this stuff into account when giving you the output of that prompt itself. So utilize a chat, utilizing a third party. If you've got ChatGPT, you can basically utilize that tip, and you can go and ask it to create you a prompt, and then you copy that prompt into creating your agent builder. So you can see what it's going to do here is it's going to basically build out a agent for me, and this agent is going to be very specific. So now you can see what it's done here is it's built out the instructions, so what the purpose is. It's taken those guidelines that I gave it, the skills, the client briefing, the evidence, month-end prep, step-by-step instruction. And that's purely from the prompt that I typed in. I didn't have to do all of this by hand. We can then come in here and we can say to it, okay, fine, what type of knowledge do we want to add to this? So keep in mind that these agents are designed to be repetitive. They are designed to build out something that you do the same way, but with different data on whatever schedule that is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just jump into SharePoint again. I'm going to add a specific document library that I want it to have access to. And I'll just add all of those documents from SharePoint into its knowledge. So it now has access to that SharePoint site. So you can see over here, it's got access to all the data that I wanted to have access to. You could add it to search specific websites. So let's say that you wanted it to use certain standards. So I'm not an accountant, but my wife is. So I hear her talk about IFRS a lot or something like that. So if you wanted to add those standards and you know there's a specific website that you trust that's got up-to-date standards, you could basically add a URL on the top here and it will only search that website. All right, so you can be very specific with public knowledge that you want it to have access to, while also giving it access to your private knowledge sitting in your SharePoint. We can add capabilities. So just like I showed you within over here, where we had the power to analyze Excel, we can do something very similar within creating these, where we allow it to analyze Excel, create PowerPoint documents, create Word documents, or even create images. So if you add create images, you might be utilizing this agent to generate images. So you might be a marketing company and you want to generate images with this. And then it's given a bunch of suggested prompts as well. So you hit create on that, and basically what happens now is it creates you, as the person that created this, a specific agent for you to utilize. Now, the nice thing about this is that we are actually able to share these with other M365 Copilot users within your organization. So if you find that this works really well for you, and you say, oh, my colleagues would really enjoy this because I think it's going to help save everyone time, you can actually share this with your colleagues as long as they have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. On top of that, very recently, Microsoft added that we can actually submit this for company-wide approval. So instead of you sharing it on an individual basis, you can go to your IT partners like Norrcom, and you can basically say to them, hey, we'd like to share this with the entire organization, and then we are able to publish it to the entire organization to you guys. So you can see over here that it is basically built out a specific agent that has a specific way of building and giving you an output every single time. Now, a second one could be, for example, this one over here, which I've already built. So I won't take you through the building process, but this is basically for tax memos. And if we have a look at the prompt that I'll just grab quickly, I'm going to ask it to use specific selected files to build out a technical paper. And basically what it does is it'll take all that knowledge that it has and then actually build out a Word document based on that knowledge. So if we always updating that SharePoint library that we've given it access to, this agent's always going to have access to that refresh data. So you don't actually have to come in and configure this every single time. You basically say, cool, here's the folders you have access to, and you manage the data refresh on the SharePoint side for it to be able to get that latest data coming through. So there's only one place that you manage it. Multiple people can have access to the SharePoint site and actually manage the data frequency of that. Whereas if we do it this way, we've got to come into file and actually interact with it. So this is where these really become powerful for us to be able to utilize them on a repetitive basis. You can see at the top here, we've also got auto. Now we can think of this as, if you wanted to think deeper, it's going to basically do a whole bunch of more analytics around it. So again, if you're struggling with outputs and you're not getting it on auto, then have a look at the models and then see which ones you can choose and rather be specific with models. So a think deeper would basically be a real deep research and then try and give me the best answer for you instead of the auto. So you can see over here, it's prepared a Word document. So if I just click on that quickly, show you what it's prepared, it's basically given a tax memorandum to whoever it is, the purpose of the scope, the executive conclusion, factual backgrounds, and basically use that data that I've given it access to be able to build this out. So if this is something that you do, building documents every month using different data, this might be a very good option, because they are very powerful and they are part of your Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Cool. Now the new kid on the block. So Microsoft Copilot Cowork. Now this is a tool that wasn't built by Microsoft. So this was actually built by Anthropic, who own Claude. And when Claude Cowork came out, Microsoft basically said, this is a phenomenal tool. We're going to buy the rights to utilize it. And what Microsoft has done is they've basically taken the core features and then put it into the Microsoft ecosystem. So now it has access to, again, your work IQ, it has access to all your data, and by default, it has access to 12 skills. Those skills range from deep research to document creation, email, etc. So the idea of co-work, like I said in the beginning, is that we start delegating a task. So we're actually moving away from prompting. So we're moving away from putting a prompt in and getting an answer, and we're actually delegating tasks to it. All right. So basically what I've done here from a demo perspective is I've said to it, all right, read the client status register, the client folders, the month-end stand-up transcriptions, give me a one-page portfolio, make it red, amber, and green. So just basically rag, and then what's blocking each, or what is blocking each one, who owns the next steps. Now, co-work has access to all of your data. So I didn't even have to tell it what data to utilize. I can be very specific if I want to, but because it has access to this brain that understands who you are and what you're working on, it will basically decide on what it's going to do. So if you want to be specific, you can. And I basically asked it to create this. So what it did is it went out, grabbed the data again from that SharePoint site that I created, and it built me a portfolio status. So where are we? What are our risks? What's blocking? Who the owner is, etc. All right. So then it took all of that and what was agreed at the stand-up. That's all great. And then I said to it, okay, that's fine, but now build me a tracker. So basically it built out that one. And then I said to it, now fill in the month-end action tracker. So this is actually a template that is sitting in that SharePoint folder. And I want you to build that out and then with the data that you have just given me and fill in that template that is sitting within SharePoint. So basically went and it took that tracker again, and it's basically built out where we are, what the action tracker looks like, who owns it, and which ones are red, yellow, and green. I then said, okay, awesome, that's fine. So now I've got those two, but now I need to present this to my leadership team coming up. So I said to them, well, can you please then build out the team with? And what it's done is it's basically then just taken all that data that we're working with and then built out a PowerPoint presentation for me to be able to go and present to the leadership for me to basically have something to talk to. Let a second to load.
While we're waiting for that, Craig, we have a question here.
Sure.
This is from Simon. The question simply is, can you insert a PDF file?
Absolutely. PDF is 100% supported.
Great, thank you.
100% supported, yeah. There's multiple, after this, I can share it with Chris and we can share it with the attendees, all the different file formats that are supported, but PDF is certainly one of those. I don't know why this is not opening. Oh. You know, while I'll maybe download that and we can open it. Let's do that. So what I also did was I asked it to send a couple of emails. So if you see at the top over here, draft 3 emails I need to send this morning. And I was very vague with this prompt, and I wanted to be quite deliberate with being vague. So basically what we're telling co-work here is just draft me 3 emails that I need to send this morning. But what it's done is it said, okay, fine, I'm going to use the context of the conversation I've had and the files that I have generated. And what I'll do is I'll draft these 3 emails. And once it's drafted those 3 emails, you can see in here, it basically said that Lisa and Tom, this is a second written request. Sarah, these are the updates that we need. And then an escalation to Rangi that is escalating directly because of a July pay run that is now at risk. So you can see what it's done there. I've said to it, draft it. I could have said to it, draft and send these emails, which I would highly recommend not doing. But you could basically get co-work to draft and then send those emails, and it'll be via your inbox or via your email address. But I basically just said, cool, we've got all the data, we've checked the data is correct, but can you now please draft me the 3 emails that I need to send this morning based on the issues that we are having. And it basically just put those into my draft email, which is pretty cool. I'm just going to quickly bring up that PowerPoint presentation so you can just see what that looks like. And cool. Basically, here is the PowerPoint presentation that addressed the 2026 July month-end close, the 2 clients that are at risk, the status, hardware engineering 70%, the open, the actions across the portfolios, and basically just gave me a starting point for me to actually talk this data based on the conversations that we have had. So you can see Cowork's got a whole bunch of skills, and they're called skills. And these skills are skills that are provided either out of the box, or what we can do is we can actually customize these. And this is where it really gets super powerful. So we can basically build a new skill. So I built an New Zealand AI research skills, but basically you can come in here and say new skill. And what will happen is Cowork's going to take you through a whole bunch of steps and ask you a bunch of questions. And it does take its time, and it really works with you through it. So if you find that your new tasks that you are running are not giving you quite what you want, then work with Cowork to create that new skill. So you would say, cool, I want you to be an accounting executive, or utilize the following, and you a standards expert on IFRS, or whatever it may be, and you actually customize that skill within Cowork. And then every time that you asking it a question, it'll actually lean on that skill because you have co-developed it with it, and will utilize that skill to build it out. So you can see how agile it is. It really can get more intelligent as you work with it to build these skills out that you want to. So it's a super, super powerful tool. But like I did mention, this is an additional cost on top of your Microsoft 365 Copilot license. And the reason why I say it's a additional on top, because the prerequisite to utilize Copilot Cowork is a Microsoft 365 Copilot license as a baseline. So without that, Cowork will not work to have that license on top. So that's really what I wanted to cover today, team. I really hope that that gave you a little bit of insights into what Copilots can do. There are different options. There's like I said, the Microsoft 365 Copilot. Then we can move into the light agents that I spoke about, and then you can move into now Copilot Cowork, which is a really powerful tool and something that you can certainly consider. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Clyden to just, or actually Chris, for Chris to take you something from Norrcom and how they can assist with this. But thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Cool. Interesting stuff. Copilot, it's come a long way in the last 6 or 12 months, especially introducing those new models, especially Claude. So I'll just give you a quick background about Norrcom. I won't take too much of your time. So we're an IT company. We cover the whole of New Zealand. At the core of what we do is managed IT services, but in the last 2 or 3 years, especially in the last 6 months, we've seen a huge shift in that to be more AI focused and cybersecurity focused. So I saw the question about, how is data protected? We're getting those questions 3-4 times a day now. And so we're helping people more consulting, managed services and communications, and buying devices is table stakes now. As an IT company, we've had to shift into being able to advise people how to use AI and to make it safe, because the two aren't mutually exclusive. Everyone's using AI, but they've got to make sure they're using it securely. So I'll quickly just go through where we're seeing people with AI on the next slide. Pops up. So phase 1 is probably you're using one of the free versions that Craig spoke about. Could be ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, or I'll say Gemini, even though it's Microsoft. But you're using a free version of that. You're playing around. You probably generated images. You're having to play, making sure it's spitting out the right prompts. And that's where a lot of people sit there. There's nothing wrong with that. The issue is there's no governance. So you shouldn't be uploading any of your work data onto a ChatGPT or Gemini. And then at phase 2, you've had a play around and you've started to deploy some licenses at your in your instances, accounting firms, you may have introduced some training to your staff, and you might have started to look at some use cases. You might be starting to look at co-work. You're not quite sure how to use it. How's it actually going to work in your organization? And then at phase 3, we're seeing people they've actually started to use this now, and they've started to have training. They've maybe rolled that out to half of their workforce. They've got some workflows embedded. They've probably got some prompts or some agents. Co-work's quite new, so you might not have started to use this, but what people are starting to realize at phase 3 is that your data readiness really does matter. Do you have the right access controls in place? Have you got documents that shouldn't have been shared with someone that people can access? Which goes to the question that was asked before. And then at phase 4, and not very many people sit at this phase 4, but basically AI is now embedded into your whole company. You've got custom agents. You now know what the ROI is, what the return on investment is for using AI, because it can spiral out of control. At phase 4, you've probably got all your data secure, which is the biggest thing that we find that people don't have, is that they've created a document, and you've all heard the horror story of someone having access to the HR folder. They ask I think there was a law firm that someone wanted to become a partner. They said, I want to know how to become a partner, and I want to know what kind of salary that I'll get paid. They asked Copilot what that was. Copilot came back and said, well, the current partners are being paid X, Y, and Z because HR hadn't secured that folder. So we're not seeing that at phase 4, but at phase 2 and 3, that's the danger that you guys run into. So that's where everyone sits, and there's no right or wrong place to sit. If you're at phase 1, that's great. You've got a journey ahead of you. If you're at phase 4, there's always more coming out. They're releasing new models, seems to be every week or so these days. So if you go to the next slide, Clyde, I think you're in control. So yeah, we're now seeing this. This is the stats that we did for an event that we ran up in Auckland earlier in the year. So 88% of people are actually using AI. 78% are using your data and taking it back home and using it on AI tools that you're probably not aware of. And they're sharing that data with an AI tool that organizations, you have no control over what they're sharing effectively. So you don't know where that's going. They might not be using one of the big ones, Claude, Copilot, Gemini. They could be using a third-party one. So that customer data could be being put anywhere just to try and help them out. And those people aren't doing it maliciously. They're just not aware of the danger or damages that they're causing. And this was in 2025, but 20% of data breaches now involve shadow AI. And you've probably all seen in the news in the last month, there's been more and more of that happening. So AI is now, it's getting so intelligent, it's just trying to find the easiest way to do its job. And so it's exposing some pretty big security flaws in lots of companies. Yeah. So what does it mean for you guys? So doing nothing is a decision. It's not a good one. It's a very risky decision, not having an AI strategy. If you say don't use AI, people are probably going to go and use it anyway, or they are. We know they are. You guys probably know they are. There's just no guardrails on, or no tools in place for what they can and can't do. AI is already there. We know it's already there. You guys already know it there. You're probably already using the free version of Copilot. So data's being shared. Risks are growing. We've seen this a lot in the last 6 months of companies being hacked, and it's all mostly down to AI these days. Yeah, the real threat isn't AI; it's unmanaged AI. And in terms of your IT security, another part that Norrcom does, the bad actors are already using AI to access your business. It's a lot easier than it was, 3 years ago. Sorry, you're not getting dodgy emails from the Middle East or Europe. The emails are now very sophisticated because they just ask AI to rewrite it for them. So the English it's very hard to detect. So what goes wrong? So poor data hygiene, as I mentioned before. So you just turning AI on for your whole organization is not good. You need to make sure that your data has been protected. You've got the right security tags on it. So again, back to that question before, is our customers' data protected? Well, it can be, but you've got to make sure that it is before you turn AI on. Otherwise, everyone's going to have access to all those folders. You want to train your people. You want to have a cybersecurity framework. I realise there's no recommended framework yet by the New Zealand government, but in Australia, they're using something called Essential 8. There's lots out there. There's NIST, there's SMB Gold, SMB Diamond. And then you want to have an ROI. So Craig briefly touched on co-work. That uses, I think you call them tokens at Microsoft. So if you're not sure how much you're going to spend, it can spiral out of control. You can spend a lot of money. So making sure that you have a defined ROI target, or what are you trying to actually achieve for success. And then, so what we're offering everyone that's on the call today, so a free Copilot readiness assessment that we can do. So that will come through, it will look at your process, it will look at some of the security of those documents, and then also look at your people capabilities. So we can identify where you're strong, where there's gaps and weaknesses before you guys implement AI, or if you've already implemented it, we can address those security gaps before they become, a major concern or a breach. So if you guys scan that QR code, I think we're going to email that out to you guys as well. And that's basically everything from Norrcom. But if you need any help with governance or security or just generic IT support, we're always here. We've been sending you guys emails, so feel free to reach out at any stage.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. And I'll leave that QR code there up for a few more minutes while we essentially wait for a few more questions to filter through. Thank you for the questions so far. While we wait for that, I suppose I could ask a couple of questions for either you, Craig, or Chris, really whoever wants to jump in. So if you think about, when the internet switched from being dial-up to broadband, right, where we made that switch, and from there it seemed like there was a pretty quick acceleration to what we have today, to the type of internet we have today. So if we were at 0 when we first switched over, I say we're now at 100 potentially, but on the scale of AI, which is a question that comes up, how far along the journey are we? How much more is there to go? Are we just at the tip of the iceberg now, or have we almost reached the capacity of what we can do? What's your view on where we're at?
Do you want to take
Yeah,
it?
I can go. I mean, yeah, I think this is, I suppose, personal, but I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what AI can do. You've seen the rapid acceleration from where it was 2 years ago. So where the internet was I think there's that scale, the graph that everyone's seen, it took people a long time to adopt the internet. AI's had the quickest adoption of basically any technology that's ever been invented. Everyone was using it very quickly. But I do think we're still at the tip of the iceberg. It's AI starting to train itself now. So the models, like I said, they're getting released every 2 or 3 weeks. So it's getting slowly and slowly more intelligent. It can do more and more things. It's not making as many mistakes as it was even 6 months ago now. It's hallucinations, as they call it, are almost non-existent now that I'm seeing in Copilot. So I think we're at the tip of the iceberg. Craig,
Okay, so there's still quite a bit of room to grow.
Absolutely agree.
Excellent. I'm just having a look at the questions. I think we have one now. Is there going to be a recording of this? Yes, James, there will be. We will send a recording out afterwards. Oops, I think I may have changed the slide. Yeah, we will send that recording out, so you will get that in your inbox. Okay, we'll just give a couple more questions, or a bit more time for. Here's something funny. My AI agent started listening to me just then on my phone for absolutely no apparent reason. Maybe there was a trigger word that was said or something. But anyway, that just goes to show it's just integrated into our daily lives, and it's just a part of what we do right now.
I could just quickly collide with people asking questions, but my suggestion is just to have a play around with some of the free versions. I mean, you can see what it can do, and when you play around with it, you start to learn its limitations, or the first prompt you do might not be great, and then you realize you've got to ask more and more questions. Like someone mentioned today, so I play around with my backgrounds in AI. So this background I've got today was designed in about 10 minutes in Copilot. I ask it to design. I upload the Norrcom logo. We've got inside Copilot, you can set prompts, so you can say that Norrcom's colors are dark blue, as you can tell. So you'll notice that there's lots of blue accents around. So you can put those instructions into your Copilot agent, which will go organization wide. So when Craig was showing those documents, you can actually make them look like your document by default. So phase 1 is just, if you're not already, just play around with it. Figure out getting the prompts right is probably the hardest part. And once you figure out the prompts, you can go as far as you want with it, really.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Craig, any parting comments from you? Anything else you'd like to add that hasn't been said, or any feedback on what you've seen from questions so far?
Yeah, no, I think I share the sentiments of Chris. I think there is a solution. and that solution might not be one of the product sets that I demo today. I'll just really, I think that's just with what Chris said, is have a conversation with people in the know, have a conversation with people, what other people are utilizing. I certainly believe that this technology can actually add a lot of value to a business. So if the solution is not quite a fit, I'm pretty confident that there will be a solution out there just by having those conversations.
Excellent. All right. Hey, with that being said, I think I will call it there. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thank you very much to Craig from Ingram Micro, and of course Chris from Norrcom. And to get more information about our sponsors today, you can go to fminsure.co.nz, or you can go to norrcom.com. That is NORRCOM.com. There will be some information sent out after this webinar as well. But with that being said, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much for your time today. Cheers.
Thank you, God.